This is Environmental Science 2, Chapter 14 on Toward a Sustainable Future. In this portion of the video lecture, we will be taking a look at different international ways that we can cooperate and communicate about our environmental problems, and then specifically focusing in on environmental policies in the United States. With the overpopulation and overconsumption problems of both developed and developing countries, really in order to achieve a sustainable future, everybody needs to be able to survive and prosper. So those individuals that are in developing countries can live their lives the way that they do, and people that live in developed countries can live their lives the way that they do, and we don't have anyone that is needing or wanting different types of resources. Of course, that is easier said than done. Earth Summit was an international meeting that was held in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. This was a session of international leaders and folks that are in the environmental science community. So not just people in charge of politics, but people that are also in charge of science. They tried to come together to work on different solutions towards our different sustainability problems. At Earth Summit, we passed what was called Agenda 21. It was a blueprint of sorts for sustainable development for developing and developed countries. Now, remember, when countries get together internationally, these are more so things that are passed are suggested and recommended, but they are not binding agreements. So if a country did not opt into signing in favor of Agenda 21, there is nothing, that can be done about that. But many nations did sign and agree to work towards that sustainable future. A follow-up to that was the Kyoto Convention that was held in Japan. That focused in more on the greenhouse gas emissions and climate change, whereas Agenda 21 was more so about sustainability for the future. So taking a look at sustainable housing design, sustainable farming practices, sustainable ranching and mining processes as well. And then the Kyoto Convention kind of followed up with greenhouse gas and climate change. In our studies during this course, we have noticed that wealthy and poor countries have contrasting needs. Developed nations such as ourselves, we have very different needs than poor or developing countries. We've talked about resources in those countries, and that, for example, technology in developing countries is centered around basic survival, clean water, and the needs in developed countries for technology that makes life better and easier and more luxurious. But we all have to work together. Wealthy and poor countries need to work together to achieve sustainability. The United States is really a leader for developed nations in environmental protection. The United States was one of the first countries to promote a day for kind of celebrating the earth itself and what it has to offer, and realizing that it's a fragile place that we all live and we all need to take care of it. So Earth Day was a movement that began in the United States to get the word out on different types of environmental concerns of the day. And Earth Day is still celebrated today with many of the same themes that were from the 1970s, taking a look at overpopulation and overconsumption, and taking a look at how we can be more green and recycle and reduce and reuse. Taking a look at different environmental health concerns as well is a part of Earth Day. So the U.S. is really a leader in developed nations for those types of things. In order to do a project in the United States that is going to either be new or moving in or expanding into a different area, companies need to do what's called an environmental impact statement. This is going to be filed for any proposed legislation or project that would affect the environment. So in some cases where, for example, there would be resources that would need to be mined, the area in consideration would have to be looked over to kind of find out the state of the ecosystem prior to the project. And then what would have to be done is kind of a hypothesizing what would happen to this ecosystem after for example, the mining project would be finished. And how can we, once we're done using the land for what we need, how can we return it back to its natural state or get as close as possible to that as possible? So the environmental impact statement needs to be presented to the public before the project goes through. In many cases, for local projects, these types of things would be brought up at local city council meetings. These also happen up at the state legislature and government as well. With national policy, every citizen has a voice. And I do think that social media and the internet has really influenced national policy within the last 20 years. Environmental laws are very difficult to keep up with. And I think it's important for every citizen to be informed about environmental policies and projects that are taking place locally and regionally, so you can be aware of things that are going on in your area. Every state, of course, also has their own legislation on environmental laws as well. So state policies can be different from state to state. Even local communities, citizen input is really effective most at the local level. Depending on, the different types of organizations, there can be some organizational problems between communities, but all of the different types of policies that are in place and the groups that organize those are necessary to help us start to achieve that sustainable future. This has been Environmental Science 2, Chapter 14 on Toward a Sustainable Future.